Hi there, Brian Connor, host of the Adirondack Hunt Podcast here. We're excited to announce Big Woods Bucks' partnership with the most respected and recognized land company in the Northeast, Christmas & Associates Land Company. Owners Dan and Mark Christmas are two upstate New York natives with deep roots in the Adirondacks and Tug Hill Plateau, as well as two of the best big woods hunters you'll meet. Whether it's a newly constructed camp surrounded by state wilderness or a comfortable family getaway, their team of experienced land guides are the best at matching folks with the perfect land tract at an affordable price and with a simple, easy process. They even provide financing. Christmas Land Guides will provide full land tours using ATVs, snowmobiles, and even snowshoes so you can scout every acre of your property. In addition to finding just the right tract for you, Christmas Land and Camp staff can help you construct the camp you've always dreamed of using their in-house master builders. Every camp is overbuilt, carefully located, and rock solid. Whether you're a first-time buyer or an experienced landowner, Mark, Dan, and all the land and camp staff will strive to make your search a quality, once-in-a-lifetime experience. For over 30 years, no one in New York State has provided more big buck properties and family hunting camps to hundreds of folks who love the woods than Christmas & Associates Land Company. Dan, Mark, and the rest of the Christmas family remain dedicated to wise land conservation and treating everyone they meet like family. Always available 7 days per week, unless there's fresh tracking snow. Contact Christmas & Associates at 1-800-229-7843. Visit them on Facebook and go to landandcamps.com. The Adirondack Hunt Podcast is brought to you in part by Seek Outside Tents. Seek Outside is an American company producing lightweight, versatile tents and titanium stoves. The Big Woods Bucks team and their friends have hunted the Adirondacks with Seek Outside hot tents and found that it's the best way to get back into the wilderness areas and have a remote hunt. With few roads and hiking trails the only way to access most of the extensive backcountry of the Adirondacks, your pack needs to be as light as possible. Seek Outside's lightweight tents and stoves enable you to get back there into the most remote country and hunt mature Adirondack bucks that likely have never seen a human being before. Click on the link in the description, use code BWB at checkout on SeekOutside.com, and get 10% off your Seek Outside gear. Good luck on your remote hunt in the Big Woods. Welcome to the Adirondack Hunt Podcast, a Big Woods Bucks production. In this podcast, the Big Woods Bucks crew from New York sits down and discusses all things hunting, and even a little fishing, within the blue line. 6 million acres of old-growth forest and few roads make the Adirondacks one of the most challenging places in the country to hunt. From Iroquois and Algonquin deer drives to the early days of Adirondack guiding to tracking with a GoPro, the team discusses the history, legends, and lore of these ancient mountains. Along the way, the team interviews top Adirondack hunters. From well-known legends to little-known local legends, homing in on what it takes to be successful in these unforgiving woods. All right, welcome back to the Adirondack Hunt Podcast, a Big Woods Bucks podcast. I'm your host, Brian Connor, camera guy and CEO of Big Woods Bucks. With me today is
Bob Dunbar,
buck killer.
Mark Sharon.
And we have a very special guest today. He really doesn't need any introduction.
Yeah, right.
But we'll do it anyway. A legend.
Yep.
My words.
In my own mind.
Yep, in your own mind, yep, and in many others as well. We have Dave Williams of the Adirondack Trackers here today. And Dave, well, I don't want to get
Can I
please, Mark.
Say how I met him?
Yeah, please do.
All right, how these two worlds came together. So I don't really remember how I met you. Oh, it was at Massett's camp.
Massett's camp.
That's right. And so I was at the Massett camp for the first time, meeting everybody, and I was blown away by how awesome everybody was. And Dave was the quiet man in the corner, and I always liked talking to the person in the corner. I said he's either a real tough guy, making sure that he keeps his back to the wall, or he's just a really kind guy and humble, and it was the latter. So we struck up a friendship. I was interested mostly in his process hunting style. He was a gear guy. I'm a gear guy. And then Bob was there that night as well, so he met him. And then eventually we went on a remote hunt, and I learned first of all, that Dave was awesome, but also the value of having good equipment, because mine sucked.
We got to tell that story.
I will. But so, Dave, tell a little history about your hunting style, the Massetts, how you met them, all that kind of cool stuff.
Dave,
if I could just ask you to get your mouth a little closer to the mic.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep.
Well, let's see. Going back prior to marriage, I more or less just decided to quit the hunting party thing. I started hunting in the Adirondacks when I was 16 with a group of like 15 guys, and needless to say, I wanted to separate from their thought process of deer hunting, and I started reading books about backcountry survival and backpacking and whatever. I guess what led me to that is my first Adirondack buck. I shot a small 9-pointer, and we were party hunting, doing drives and stuff. And, you know, when people would shoot a deer as part of a party hunt, you would be super excited. Well, my first buck, a couple of the guys weren't super excited, and that was like a total turnoff. So I said, one, they don't give these deer enough credit, and two, I can't stand people and hunting with people. So I just my
feeling familiar to a lot
my
of us,
first
I think.
adventure was I said, I'm gonna go explore some mountains. Back in the day when I was 18 or 20, it was map and compass. There was no GPS. There was no nothing. So he used to say, I got a backpack and took a poly tarp and a 0-degree sleeping bag, and off into the woods I went, and I wrapped myself up like a burrito up on top of a mountain, and that was my first time out and about, by myself. And I heard a little noise in the morning, and I look, and there was a little snow on the ground, and a bear had walked about 30 feet from me, wrapped up in my little burrito, and I said, "Oh, this is awesome."
Burrito hunting. I
Yeah,
like it.
yeah. There was no. I mean, it was a simple poly tarp. Wrap yourself up,
Done it.
and that's it. You breathe out the end. So, then it fast forward. A few years here. I'm 60 now, and you like to take it to the high tech, super comfortable way of surviving in the outdoors, where it's luxury. It's a getaway. I think about 2 weeks ago, I said to Brian Connor, "Hey, you want to go fishing this week?" "Oh, no, I can't. I've got a commitment and whatever." And I caught that nasty torrential storm, and I slept like a baby because, just the awesome gear and whatever. So fast forwarding after my first adventures alone, I used to hunt and go cross country and then have somebody pick me up. And one time I was waiting for a pickup. It was just before dark, and I had met a guy. It was Raymond Hart. And while I was waiting for my ride, we got to chit-chatting and whatever, and he said, "Oh, my camp is right around the corner, and my cousins are the Massetts." And I said, "Oh, really?" I went to one of Jim Massett's and Tommy Massett's seminars long, long ago, and I had talked to those guys. "Oh, they're super guys." I said, "Geez, I'd like to see them again." Well, Ray Hart invited me over to his camp, and that's how that began. And he became a long-term friend. Ray is now passed away, but just a super inviting group of guys, especially the Harts. So to this day, I'm still part of the Hart camp, which is 75 feet from the Massett camp. And I can't think if it's been 30-something years since I've met those guys and whatever. But it's been great, and I've met a lot of other guys that similar instances. They ran into each other. We're sort of all brothers in the woods, and somehow we meet and become friends, and we have common interests, and that's the way it goes down. So
So have you upgraded your gear at all? So you said you did. So what do you have now for gear?
I upgrade my gear. I call it outdoor crack.
Yeah.
And
can
Dennis
relate.
Gipe and I kid around. We're like, geez, I'm Jones and I need something. I need something new. It's to a point where it's only tiny upgrades. You've got your major 3 gear, sleeping bag, tent, and whatever. But now it's just the small things.
Mm-hmm.
So
what do you use for a tent? You use the seek outside? Or?
I have too many tents.
Yeah.
It depends.
He really does.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going on a day trip fishing or whatever in the Adirondacks, I like everything lightweight. So, some of the newer single-person or two-person Cuban fiber tents are, they're a pound and a half.
Yeah.
It's all about weight and comfort.
Right.
So
and let me ask too. Those early days, were you when you first got into hunting, the Adirondacks? Were you tracking at that point, or still hunting, or a little bit of both? What was your primary?
I
method?
would say my primary method still is still hunting, because ultimately tracking is still hunting.
Right.
That's so true.
Yeah. So I like to just slither along, I call it, and be sneaky. And if you can find that track, but I think a lot of people get caught up on the track. Just being in the woods, and if you're lucky enough to find that big buck track or whatever, that's great. But doing the overall thing, even parts of the day, sitting on a stump somewhere is hiding, waiting for something to run you over is not a bad gig. So,
yeah, and I have to say, just in talking to you, like your philosophy on just enjoying the outdoor experience it's inspiring, frankly, because I think a lot of us do get caught up in like getting your buck, and it can be a slog, and frankly, it can be not fun. And I think just in talking to you, I find it so inspiring, and and I'm going to do a remote hunt this year. And I committed to that, kind of channeling you, just thinking, you know what, I just want to get back in the woods, which is what I started out backpacking before I got into hunting, so I had all the lightweight backpacking stuff, and I'm going to basically take the philosophy of going backpacking, and I'm going to have a rifle with me. And if I
that's
shoot
perfect.
that's going to be,
that's a great
that's kind of my plan. Yeah.
Yeah, AKA the armed hike.
Yes.
Arm hike,
Yeah,
if you will.
that's exactly. I go on a lot of armed hikes with nothing to show for it, but a lot of pain.
So you live down here, Dave. By the way, we're at Huntstock, New York right now, and we're all having a great time. So just got to quickly plug that. And you live right around here, right, Dave?
Yeah, I live over in Clinton, right behind Hamilton College.
Great. And so, did you grow up in this area?
No, I grew up in Marcy, actually.
You did?
Not far from the Donito family, so
all right.
I've known them for many years based on that.
Gotcha.
So,
and how often do you make it up to the Adirondacks to hunt in a typical year?
To hunt,
Yeah.
how often? Well, long weekends. I don't know. I mean, I'm up there a lot. Last year, I said that's it. I'm taking 5 weeks, and I hunted the entire 5 weeks.
Oh, really?
A lot of backpacking.
Nice.
A lot of camping.
Cool.
Going back, it's not about the kill anymore. It's not about the goal. It's all about adventure, and
Love that.
just being in the woods. I have a philosophy, and I say, most canoers aren't fishermen, and most backpackers aren't hunters. Combine a backpacker, a fisherman, a hunter, and all that, you get the total experience.
Yeah.
So
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. And I'd be remiss if we didn't bring up brookie fishing. Dave is a fantastic brookie fisherman. All you have to do is buy to get a sense of what an accomplished brookie fisherman he is buy the 80K Trackers book. He's got lots of photos in there of some of his brookies over the years. So you have a lightweight canoe that you pack back?
Yep, I like tents. I have an abundance of canoes. So, mostly the carbon Kevlar small pack boats, hornbeck boats, slip streams, and whatever. But
I'm just gonna ask you to move your phone over to the side there. There you go. Yeah. Sorry, you were saying, so you have quite a few canoes, I guess. Huh?
well, I have an abundance, yes.
Okay.
He's got more equipment than any human being I've ever
Yeah,
met.
I love it.
Just call it well
Yeah.
invested.
Yep.
It is.
Yep.
And those hold their value. They really are an investment. I mean, you see like hornbecks from 30 years ago listed on Facebook Marketplace, and it's $100 less than what they
Yep.
were.
They're a great investment. It's like a Woodsman Arms muzzleloader. They're not going down in value.
Oh, we're not sponsored by them, so I'm gonna have to. No, I'm kidding.
I want to jump in about.
Please,
I want
Mark.
to talk a little bit about process hunting, right? So, Dave introduced me to that term, and it's all about the process, right? And one of the things that I love doing is I love tinkering with guns, right? I like building them. I like testing them. I'm obsessed with them. I have a fella here that's going to be on a podcast here soon that does the same thing. But Dave tinkers with all that equipment, right? And, I'm on the Big Woods Bucks team, and Hal always says, only have one gun. I have probably 10 guns, and each one has a single shell in it in the stock for a tracked buck that I've killed. And there isn't a single one that has two, right? So for me, I say that because I want the audience to know that you got to follow your own path, follow your own passions. So during the summer months, for me to get through the summer months, and me and Dave talk, and I'm talking with Bob, and I'm talking with Austin, I'm talking to all these amazing people. I'm collecting data, but they all have, like Bob might have one gun that he uses for 5 years or for 20 years, and I'll have 20 different rifles, and sometimes multiple rifles during the year. And I was talking to a guy, and I'm just going to digress very quickly, and then I'm going to get back into the story with Dave on this. I said, this was 10 minutes ago, before the podcast. I said, what gun do you use? This is a total stranger to me. And he said, I don't want to tell you. And I said, why? Tell me. And so he explains what he shoots. And he's like, it's not a pump. And I said, oh, my God, dude. I had a pump for 10 years. I missed 12 bucks. Don't be a me. Go do your own thing. And it ended up that the rifle he had was a very interesting, amazing Adirondack rifle, but it's not the popular kind, right? The quote-unquote tracking rifle. But he's super successful.
What gun was it, Mark? I'm curious, though.
It was an X-Bolt in 6.5 Creedmoor, which gets a ton of bad press, but it's one of the most popular rounds for a reason.
The 6.5 man bun, as Andy Larson from Skinner Sights calls it.
Right. I mean, he likes it too, though. But it's but he felt bad. I said, don't feel bad about anything. So Dave introduced to me an entire new world that had nothing to do with, where I started. I started with a Benoit book and running woods in Schaghticoke, New York, not having any idea what I was doing. And then I end up in the woods with him in a tent in this very cold weekend. I go through the ice at one point. He's up on this mountain, long ways away. And I was in real trouble, and I got back to that tent.
Well, can I? Sorry, Mark, I have to interrupt. Just so you go through the ice and you come out, and then what do you do?
Yeah, I did something really stupid. Really, really, really stupid.
Ballsy.
Well, dumb, really dumb. I had lost my gun at the bottom of a beaver pond through the ice, and instead of immediately figuring out where I was and getting to the tent, I went swimming and got my gun.
So Mark loves his guns. When he says he loves his guns, maybe even more than his life.
I literally had to. It's very hard to hold your breath in icy water, by the way. I found that to be true. And I got out and I was freezing to death, actually. I legitimately was freezing to death. But then I found my way back to the tent, and that tent saved my life. And because I had spent time with Dave and figured out with the stove and everything in one day. And my gear, by the time Dave got back, my gear was dry and I was toasty. And I was like, this is just amazing. So I credit him with training me in 24 hours' time. He saved my life.
And that was a Seek Outside tent with a.
Yeah, actually, yep. That's a Seek Outside tent. That's a hot tent with a nice little titanium stove. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Did you have fun that trip, Dave? Hanging out with Mark?
Absolutely.
Cool.
When he tells stories like, dude, I got soaked up to my neck and blah blah blah, and I remember looking at his sleeping bag when we went in, and I was like, "You're gonna sleep in that?" It's like, "Yeah." You know, as I watched them shiver all night long.
Remember, I took all my gear and piled all my
Yep.
gear on top of myself.
Yep.
I
Yep.
was so cold.
Yep.
Had one of those little thin Kmart mats, you know, I could feel the earth just sapping my strength as I lied there half dead. It was crazy.
So,
Good time.
how far back in were you guys?
Well, let me start this and say we were going to take mountain bikes in. So Mark's like, I don't have a mountain bike. So I said,
I love the gear.
I've got an extra mountain
By the way,
bike.
there's a forest ranger present, so careful what you say about
Mountain bikes. Yeah, we were in
wild
a
forest
little-
rather than wilderness
Yeah,
area.
the legal
Okay,
one.
all
We
right.
were in that one.
Yeah. Wherever we were, it was
He's
the
giving the
legal one.
thumbs up. All right.
But the funny part is we had about a 5.5 mile.
Dave, I'm just gonna ask you to get a little closer. Sorry.
We had about a 5.5 mile bike ride to get to where we were going to start hiking. Is this thing okay? Because
Yeah, you're
it's
good.
good.
Yep.
Okay. So funny thing, I unload the bikes. Of course, you know, I had an e-bike, but I didn't tell Mark.
I kind of figured it out pretty quickly.
And needless to say, we start down the trail, and the gears on my other bike, I think the cable broke, and it wasn't switching gears properly, and so Mark ditched it in about 200 yards.
Did right
So
immediately. I hucked the thing into the bushes. I was like, forget it, dude.
Yep. So it was great from there because, you know, I could go 10, 15 miles an hour with a backpack and a bike, and he's like, dude, well, you're like Superman. You're not even pedaling. And I'm like, yeah, this is power assist. So
I was like,
5.5 miles later, Mark's behind me and he's dying, and his energy levels like going down quick, and we ditched the bikes, or I ditched my bike, and then we start hiking. So we were going to go up over a mountain, down the other side, a major mountain range there, and we probably hiked Mark, an hour and a half.
yeah.
And
But
there's
mind you, he rode the bike in the 5 miles.
Yes.
I was walking with the pack on my back. Okay,
that's my point. I was fresh and Mark was dead.
I
And-
was.
And so we get to this big beaverfly, and I'm like, there's the ridge we got to go up over. And Mark's like, I think this beaverfly looks pretty good.
Yeah, looking
So,
good right here.
you know, it was like an old washed out. There was some grassy areas and whatever. So I was like, yep, he's beat. We're staying here. And it was just a beautiful spot overlooking the mountain. And yeah, that's where we set up the hot tent and decided to stay like 3 days.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And Bob, you called Steve Grabowski.
I did because the weather forecast for that weekend was crazy. It was like 30, 40 mile an hour winds and sub-zero temperatures. And I texted him on Facebook Messenger, and I was like, "Are they gonna be okay out there?" And he just texted me back, "They'll be fine." I was like, "Okay."
Meanwhile, Mark's almost dying.
Yeah, I was dying of stupidity. You know, had nothing to do with equipment. Yeah.
So when you have the right gear and the right, I can't remember, but I've been in the Adirondacks during microbursts. I've been in, you know, like 2 weeks ago, torrential rain. It was beautiful, you know, all alone with the right gear, you know, a hot tent. I don't remember the bad weather. We don't really care, you know. My son Nathan and I were in an outfit one time. We got like 10, 12 inches of snow, and we stayed in the outfit. It was 2.5 days. We never left the tent. And on the third day, I think we went out, and of course all the deer hunkered down because of all the snow. But I'm like, this was so relaxing. You know, you're taking naps throughout the day. You get up, you eat, you do whatever, you pass the days, and it was one of the most memorable, awesome times I've spent in an outfit during the worst of weather. Yeah. You know, the winds were like, I thought, you know, we're dead. The trees are just going to tumble over. But we were on the backside of a ridge and tucked in nice. And so, again, weather doesn't make any difference when you're prepared. And if you're not prepared, you'll remember those days. That's why I don't. So
I have a quick question with your equipment. I always ask this of every guest. What gun do you use, and what do you prefer for a deer rifle?
Well, I bought an A-bolt years ago, a Browning 308 A-bolt. I started out with the pumps way back when, and it didn't fit me very well with the stride I have. So I've got a short little customized A-bolt, Browning A-bolt, and I don't know. I'm not a guy that's into calibers and all of the hype. I had a 30-06 semi-automatic, and boy, I used to let those bullets fly, but they didn't hit half the things I was shooting at.
Yeah.
But when you're within 50 yards, I say, and most deer that I've shot in the Adirondacks are within 50 yards. I don't care if I had a 223 or a 30-06 or a 308 or whatever. They're going down, or I'm going to put a bullet in them. So I've never had a problem, but I'm not a gun guru. Just give me a few bullets in a halfway decent lightweight gun, and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right. Any other questions?
No, I think that's it, Dave. Thank you so much. I mean, it's
You're
really
welcome, guys. Pleasure.
I'm sure you hear it all the time, but you are a legend in my mind, and not just, like I said, not just for the Bucks and the Brookies, but for your philosophy on the outdoors and the entire endeavor. It's inspiring, like I said. So, thank you very much for that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks, Dave.
So, all right, let's. I think we're gonna take a quick break and come right back on. So,
All right.
Those of you who listen to the podcast will know that here at Big Woods Bucks in the off season, we're big into brookie fishing. If you're going to be brookie fishing in the Adirondacks, there's only one way to do it right, and that's with a lightweight canoe. Our friends at the Adirondack Canoe Company are making traditional lightweight pack canoes. Adirondack Canoe Company's canoes are the finest made canoes in the Adirondacks, the Northeast, or the country for that matter. When I go brookie fishing, I bring the Adirondack Canoe Company's Haystack canoe. The Haystack is based on the John Henry Rushton-designed Wee Lassie, which has proved to be a worthy haul over the last 150 years. Worked into the Adirondack culture of brookie fishing, this canoe is a fantastic fishing platform and light enough to carry wherever you go. So if you're in the market for a lightweight canoe, go to the Adirondack Canoe Company and check out their stuff. We'll see you out on the brookie ponds.
Hi everyone, team member Mark Sheeran here. Some of you might not know that my day job is coaching people on how to move past addictions. I've been doing this for more than 34 years now, and I absolutely love providing the most effective method for moving past addiction in the world. It's called the Solution to Addiction Workshop and the Solution to Addiction Coaching. Both of these life-changing programs are presented by me and my team here at the Freedom Model. If you're someone who wants to be free from an addiction, but you don't want to go to daily support meetings, rehabs, or be on replacement medications for the rest of your life, give us a call at 888-424-2626. Or you can go to www.thefreedommodel.org. Your first 30-minute consultation is free. Here's that number again, 888-424-2626. I look forward to helping you. Take care.
This podcast is brought to you in part by Minus 33. Minus 33 is a wool and textile manufacturer based in New Hampshire that is producing top-notch merino wool base layers and socks. Layering your clothes when you're hunting the big woods is key. As we've discussed on this podcast, the conditions and distances involved in hunting the Adirondacks mean that you have to take your gear seriously. You can't afford to not have the best gear, and that's particularly true of your base layers. Minus 33 long johns should be an essential part of your gear system to keep you warm while you're out in the Adirondack backcountry. As for socks, I've tried dozens of pairs of wool socks over the years, and Minus 33's Heritage socks are by far the comfiest. If you go on the Minus 33 website, you can read about the care that they've taken to create these socks, and once you put them on, the difference is obvious. They're perfect for long days hoofing it up and down mountains in the Adirondacks. So get prepped for the season now by clicking on the link in the description and getting stocked up on Minus 33 merino base layers and socks. Happy hunting. All right, welcome back to the Adirondack Hunt Podcast, a Big Woods Bucks podcast. I'm your host, Brian Connor, CEO of Big Woods Bucks and camera guy. Joining me today is
Austin Sheeran.
All right,
And Mark Sheeran.
All right, and we're here at Huntstock, New York. We're having a great time. We're just banging out podcasts. We've just had some great ones too. I mean, we've had some awesome podcasts, and the special guests keep coming. And we have another special guest here today. I'll let Mark. So we've met relatively more recently, so I'll let Mark probably do a more proper introduction.
Yeah, well, I'm not even sure when I met Dennis. It might have been at a seminar, I think.
This is Dennis Gipe, everybody.
Yes.
Hi, everybody.
That's right. That's Dennis Gipe. And there are people, let me just say, I don't remember the exact moment, but I think it was at a seminar, one of the, maybe Joe Donito's, I'm not sure. And, but he, like Dave, they're kind of like the dudes that stay in the back, but Dennis is hilarious. So is Dave, and so is Joe. They're all cool cats. But Austin, talk about when he came into the camp last year.
Last year we come out of remote camp because we had 1.5 feet of snow and 6 more inches coming. We were like, we're not doing this. Let's go find something with a little less. And when we came out, we swung by Roy Hart's camp to see everybody, Dave and Roy and everybody. And a little while later, Dennis comes stumbling in, and he lays his 7600 against the wall, and he goes, "There is no effing way that thing is accurate at all." And we all started dying. And he goes, "Dude, that thing went flying down the mountain like 30 feet, tumbling, hitting rocks and everything else."
Yeah.
That happens at least once a season where you drop that and you question it from that day on.
A full yard
Right.
sale, dude.
Now, what was so funny about that was me and Austin were the first ones in camp, and each guy was rolling in, and each guy was dejected and exhausted. We were too. You know, we had
Packed
just
out 80
we had,
pounds and
yeah,
foot and a half of snow.
we had just packed out, and I was exhausted. So the theme was, you know, Roy comes in and goes, "I was just on a damn 10-mile death march."
Yep.
That's what he said. Dennis comes in and says, "I pitched my guy. That gun was out of my hands more than it was in my hands." And now none of this is rehearsed. So this is each person is just describing their utter misery and lack of success, you know. And so me and Austin hadn't talked to anybody, and we were like, "How's your season been?" Everybody's like, "Jesus Christ, yeah, it's terrible."
It was a rough one.
Yeah.
It was a rough season for sure.
Yeah,
but
'cause
it
we
was-
went from bare ground in bad conditions
That's right.
to 2 feet of snow.
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Like that.
But what was interesting is it was all kind of tongue in cheek because we were all happy to be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that Roy's Camp provides for all of us is a safe haven to go, to lick your wounds, to have a little compassion with each other, to
Yeah.
know you're not the only one that's out there busting your tail every single day and not seeing nothing day after day after day.
Well, and every one of these hunters in there are phenomenal.
Yeah,
So everybody will be struggling. You're
That's
like, all right, I
Yeah.
feel a little bit better.
that's right.
Yeah, I'm not the
Good
only one.
company.
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah. No, it's we're very fortunate. I had a similar story to Dave as far as my introduction to the Adirondacks, but the Hart Camp and the Massett Camp to all of us has been a godsend in that it gives us the ability to meet people, to learn, to have a safe place, you know, that your family knows that you're fine. But the family connections that you build over the years, those people and those stories, and you know, as a young kid, I could just remember sitting in that corner and all these guys like you're talking about coming back into camp. But you got the Massetts coming in, you got the Harts coming in, and you're just sitting there and listening to all these stories thinking, did I die and go to heaven?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's royalty.
Yeah.
That's literally deer hunting royalty.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we were that night at camp, we walked over to the Massett camp, hung out there for a little while, see everybody, and Tom was there, you know, Jim, everybody, and they wanted to know about the buck that I had shot. And I was, you know, kind of went through it a little bit, but I didn't go crazy into detail. And Tom was like, no, let's hear the story. And I was like, oh, okay. Which, you know how hard it is to explain a deer story to Jim and Tom Massett?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know,
and they literally were.
They forced me to tell the whole story. So I was about halfway through it, and one of the other guys came in and started talking, and Tom was like, whoa, we're listening to a deer story.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
You
sat
know,
down and
like I said, in all those years we sit and we observe and we watch, but they have shown and taught us also how to handle other hunters' success. And if you think about that, that's sometimes we all have different personality types, but I will sit and watch the Massetts and I'll watch Roy Hart, and they are so excited when somebody else succeeds. And if you think about that, I'm like, what what a beautiful personal quality that they are, especially a young guy that gets maybe his first one or first couple, the impression that makes on you, going forward lasts the rest of your life.
100%.
I want to just say that's exactly right. And there's a difference between somebody that is listening to your story and you can tell it's perfunctory. Tom was genuinely, I honestly, I don't think I've ever seen somebody more interested in a deer story in my life. He pulled up the chair, and when Roger came in, Roger didn't know that it was story time. He just starts talking, and Tom was like, whoa. Like Austin said, whoa, deer story time. And Roger was like, oh. He instantly was like, he pulls up a chair. And well, I could see Austin's nervous as hell, but he told the story, and Tom's like, all right, wait, go back. How did that happen? Was the wind in your face? And you could see that Tom was there. You know what I mean? He was putting the pieces together. And how many bucks has he killed? Do you know what I mean? So it was an extraordinary moment.
Yeah. No, the Massett's, for me, you were talking earlier on a previous podcast about mentors. And for me growing up, I was just west of Syracuse area, but Jim Massett lived in Chittenango, which wasn't all that far away. But this is in the early 80s. Jim Massett did a lot of the seminars in the areas, for sports shows and whatnot.
Yeah, that's right.
And he made such an impression on me, especially with the photos. There would be photos I remember in the Sunday paper every hunting season. You'd see Jim Massett carrying, a giant 10-point on his back walking out. And I remember, when you grow up in the southern zone, I mean, that's a totally different kind of hunting. But I just remember the first thing I thought of is, I'm like, that man looks like a dragon slayer. I mean, he's just, the things that he's physically doing. And when you meet him,
It sounds mythological.
He's not the biggest man of stature, but the stories are legit. So he made such an impression on me from that day forward. I'll never forget, always just being enthused with him. And most kids, young kids, athletes are their mentors, right? So for me, Jim Massett always had a level of what I wanted to ascend to, grow into, and do and be, that it came to a culmination. This is in probably mid-90s. I just started going full-time for the Adirondacks. I kind of got burned out with the Southern Zone. I wanted adventure. I wanted stories. So I remember picking regionally in an area, and I wanted the biggest mountain I could find. So sure enough, I went, and we had maybe 6 inches, 7 inches of snow that day. And I remember going up the mountain, and I left early, and I had to cross a river prior to get my start of the day. And I was probably good 4 or 5 miles in. And I remember I had a crunch on the snow, and I'll never forget getting, to the point where I wanted to slow down a little bit, and I hear off in the distance, crunch, crunch. I go, oh, it's a buck coming, I bet, crunch. And it got louder. And I look on the ridge, and I see a hunter off on the edge of the ridge, and he's coming towards me. And I said, holy cow, and I'm looking. And as he got closer, I realized it's Jim Massett. I've never met Jim Massett before. This is like a kid on a basketball court,
more exciting
sitting
than
by
a buck.
himself, and Michael Jordan walks on the court. Want to shoot, kid?
Right.
But
Now you're getting buck fever.
It was Jim Massett's reaction to me, though. When I saw him, I kind of surprised him, and it was the middle of the day, and he saw me, and I'll never forget. He comes running over and with enthusiasm, hey, and he introduces himself and gave me a big hug, and I'll never forget the first thing he said. Where are we? And I said, where are we? I'm thinking in my head, I think I know where I am, but if Jim Massett doesn't know where we are, I am screwed. So what I ended up learning later on is they happen to have for that season an outfit in that general area. So he was just curious if I maybe had an outfit or something like that. So I remember, geez, here's my keys. If you go northwest from here, you'll find my truck. Use it. I'll find myself. Anyways, but that was my first interaction with Jim Massett. From that point on, he always said, I want you to stay at my camp. I always want you to know you have a bunk here.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, that was kind of the home base, and wasn't just obviously a place to lay at night, but it was an opportunity to meet these guys, Dave and Joe, and then the snowball started as far as, having guys that you could lean on, guys that you could learn from. And then it morphed into, attending Joe DeNito's parties when he first started with those, and that just through the years, that was the foundation of friendships and memories that I will have the rest of my life, But again, it was because of his personal qualities. I want you to stay at my camp.
Yeah.
And if he didn't do that, I may not be here today with these guys. And,
I know.
You know, so anyways, the Massetts, like I said, they play a huge part in motivating us and how we, act as hunters in the field, but also how we treat each other.
Yeah.
So Joe Esposito mentioned it too. You stand on
Right.
each other's shoulders to reach a higher pinnacle, and that's always been the case with our group.
No, which is as important as anything, really.
Yeah.
We were talking about this at the picnic a little bit. In terms of, I guess we're kind of playing around with the idea of what makes a legend, and I'm not trying to make myself sound like some philosophical genius, but it occurred to me, really, I think legend status, it's not the amount of bucks you shoot, or the amount of seminars you give, or it might be the amount of seminars you give, in the sense that I think a legend is somebody who touches people, and really improves their lives, and not just teaching them, hunting skills, but like you said, just modeling behavior about how to,
Absolutely.
how to treat other people.
It's the impact that you have on the industry.
Yeah, and that's a
Yeah.
special thing, what you're describing.
Now, what those gentlemen used to do, and there's times they still do it. I was always absolutely fascinated with the outfits. When they would go back in, set up an outfit for the season.
Yeah.
And that touched a part of me with the camping aspect and the backpacking aspect.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
They're not just hunting out of a building, and they're back in living it. You know.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, Roy Hart telling us stories how they used to use that clear plastic sometimes, and he can remember as a young guy. I remember looking up in the stars, through that clear plastic that they
the
would use
best.
for a shelter. It's like, how cool.
That's
Those
the best.
are the experiences that you get, doing the big woods hunting back in the Adirondacks,
big time.
which is really cool. So
Yeah.
but they, like I said, that whole group, but what they also have taught is how to storytell, and that was a big lesson for all of us, is learning how to convey what you saw and did that day.
Yeah. How to communicate the magic.
It was it's funny because even fast forward to today, my one of my sons he's into the hunting. I'm getting him more and more involved. He's a sophomore, and his brother at Plattsburgh. But when their friends are around, their friends love to hear my stories from the Adirondacks. And it even cascades over further with my wife and some of the couples that we go out. They love hearing what we do. And it's but I think it sometimes is the stories that we tell and the places we've been and the situations that we're part of that
Sure.
not a lot of people do this.
No.
know.
Well, we say all the time. I mean, it's like a lot of our
Sounds
fans.
insane.
It does. A lot of somebody just commented on Hal's Adirondack buck from we just posted the video,
Yeah.
and he's like, "I've never been west of or east of the Mississippi. I hunt out of a stand in Missouri, but something about watching you and on your adventures is just completely electrifying, and I love it." And I think that's Chris Dalty has a great metaphor, or maybe it was yours, Mark, about the NFL.
No, it's Chris's.
Yeah, so just the idea that the people who are big woods hunting, are the professional athletes, if you will. Not to put us on a pedestal or anything, but we're doing something that most people don't anyway, at a pretty high level. And a lot of people are fans of that, even though they may never do it, and they just love it.
And you don't know how it inspires. If somebody watches a football game for the Giants and that's their team and they win the Super Bowl, it can change their life in ways that you don't know. Or they're inspired by the players. Or the band Rush, as an example. I lived a very lonely life. And then I will never forget it. My brother gave me a pair of headphones. And this song, Subdivisions by Rush, changed me. Because I had no friends at the time. I was drugging hard. I had no parents. I mean, I lived a feral life.
It
And-
touched me as a kid too.
Yeah.
That same song.
Yes. I think that song has saved lives. So you just don't know. Everything is an art form. So hunting is the same thing. And the storytelling. So I'll tell you, Dennis, when you tell a story, you have a spirit that is very, you're bright. You're bright. I'm not.
Trust me, there's some that probably disagree with you, but,
No, but-
I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
your spirit is bright, and you're funny and you're lighthearted, and that is just such a rare thing in this world.
Well, there was a correlation that I came upon about 10 years ago. I'm in sales. I'm in the pharma industry, and I have a comfortable way of talking with people. I'm
Yes.
with doctors and things of that nature. And I can remember a lot of times I always envision what I do professionally is no different than telling a hunting story.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm just happen to be talking about a product or something, but so I have, I guess, maybe a comfort zone that I live in where I have the ability to talk to
Yeah.
people that are brand new to what I'm conveying, but the hunting stories are kind of where we, cut our teeth, so to speak, on how to talk to maybe people, strangers, and so it's always been a comfort zone for me. But,
Yeah.
but thank you. I appreciate the compliment. But I honestly could say the Adirondacks has kind of walked me through all the transitions of hunting, and we all have phases that we go through. When we start out, when we're young, we want to shoot as much as we can, and
Yeah.
you phase into the trophy stage, and you phase into the skill stage of how you want to hunt. But it's like it's awesome to be able to see through the years, like those changes in myself now to the point where I know Dave and I talk about this a lot, that just the value and appreciation of just being out there now, and it's. I could care less if I shoot another buck. Honest to God, we all say that from time to time. I love and am passionate about getting the young guys the experiences and teach them, because that's what I will honestly say. The Massetts and their stories have probably saved me 10 years of learning things the hard way.
Yeah, for sure.
If you think about that, I got such a head start because I sat in that corner listening to how they handle scenarios and situations, and I was always just fascinated with hearing a story and it clicking of, oh, that makes sense. Why would I follow that animal in that barnyard? Circle around just like Hale does, with the stories. And so it's always been interesting to see that change through the years, evolving. But now it's about the outfits and it's about the tent and what used to be maybe shooting a beautiful, huge buck and going up and holding those horns and the feelings that you have internally right there at that moment. Well, believe it or not, I experience those now from time to time. It could be coming back to teepee at the end of a long, hard day.
Yeah.
And maybe Dave might
It
be
is
there ahead of
nice.
me, and you round that corner and you see off in the distance that glow of that tent, and you smell that wood smoke in the air.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
We went.
That's
Totally.
I shot
It's a
my
special
buck
thing.
this year, and we got him out and everything, and then he went back into remote camp a day before me, and I met up with him, and then I was like, I'm gonna go take a little walk, do some scouting, poking around, like a little afternoon walk, and like when he went through the beaver pond with Dave, like that's not a rare occurrence for my dad to end up in a pond somewhere or a river
It's
or
true.
a
Yeah, I
swamp
feel
up
like
to his
Mark's a little
chest.
accident prone.
Yeah, well, he's stubborn. So, turns out I ended up being the guy to go through the river that day. I was soaked, and I was like, this was supposed to be like a nice, casual little, walk. It didn't turn out to be that. But I remember coming back up, and it's like all these little hummocks and pretty sprucey. And I remember, like, catching a glimpse of the tent through the trees, and you could just see a little bit of smoke coming out the chimney, and I was like, he beat me back.
Yeah.
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 I was
Yeah.
like, that's awesome.
It literally becomes your home, so you see, and I like it. I liked it when you were in the tent and you had fired it up. You know what I mean? And you're like, because the mountains are also lonely,
Mm-hmm.
but I think loneliness is necessary.
Yeah.
And that's something that our world doesn't let you do anymore. You are fed, you are pampered with imagery, you're plugged in. I can't stand it, to be honest. I mean, I have to be on social media for a big part of my day, promoting my companies. I'm a pretty hardcore entrepreneur. I help people with addictions. I'm in intense struggles all day long, every day. So when I get out there, man, it's like I leave a crazy world to one that's very starkly different. And the camping, I think, has really brought it full circle to a different world.
Oh, I 20 plus years ago when Dave and I started, actually Joe Esposito was the one that kind of was my first opportunity to experience what an outfit was like
Right.
in the Adirondacks.
Mhm.
And we met at Joe Donito's party, and this is when we used to literally, in Joe's living room, hang around at the end of the season. We'd all bring our racks, and boy, that was so cool. But you found like-minded individuals, and I remember Joe taking a liking to it. Like, I'm at that stage now, a young kid. Hey, what do you do? Where you hunt? And blah, blah, blah. I want you to, join us next season.
Yeah.
Like, what? What can I add to this group? This individual is so much. So anyways, that was my first taste of hunting out of an outfit. And
Yeah.
I was just remember the wood prep and the things that you do and the sacrifices you make so that you have a comfortable camp during the season. And But then it evolved where Dave and I kind of took it to the next stage where everything was wall tents back in the day. And everything information related was always out from the Western hunters. And I can remember how over time technology and fabrics and materials and you now have the ability to go places in the Adirondacks that isn't the big wall tents. You have these lightweight, outfits that I know we're all starting to use. But Dave and I were onto that, almost 20 years ago when they first started with Kifaru and then eventually Seek Outside and titanium stoves. And it's so cool to be able to, like I said, have a pack. My dream has always been to have a pack light enough that I could track a buck in mid-November when they're going forever and not have to worry about turning around and going back to wherever I am at the end of that night. I would love to be able to set up that little hooch outfit, pick up the track the next morning and take off.
I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do that.
I'm anxious to hear.
I'm going to do that.
So
I'm going to be a mobile Indian.
It's awesome.
So let me ask you, though, just to delve a little into the gear stuff, and Dave, feel free to chime in. Like I said, I started out backpacking. I backpacked my whole life, and then before I got into hunting. So I have all the lightweight gear. When you're heading out on a trail for like a 3 or 4 night backpacking trip, you're generally aiming for I find like a 28-pound pack.
Yep,
is about right.
That's exactly about right. Then
are
you put
you
your
aiming
rifle
for that?
on that. Yeah,
okay.
You're dialed in right there. That's exactly where my goal is to be. Now I could be lighter. There's things that I still every year we try to evolve our gear. We try to find something. And Dave is unbelievable at finding some unbelievable gear. And I've gotten to the point now where if he says I just buy it. I don't even look at it. Just buy it.
Me too.
All right.
I tell him to send me the gear list.
There's things over time, for instance, when you come back from, like I said, I was old school, littering like what we used to experience with the pack boots and the wool and all that, in which we still use the wool, but like putting the down gear on at the end of the day, when you're looking to warm up, and just stuff like that. It's like I never used to think about that and the weight savings.
Right.
But then it's evolved into some of the synthetic materials. But more importantly, we're always constantly dialing in that gear to see if it provides more comfort. And the one thing that's like we always try to do is anything I buy, if I could get 2 uses out of it, So for instance, I know I got onto with something that was like 3 ounces, one of the inflatable devices for our pads. We got these down pads that we use. Well, I also use it for getting that fire going. You can hit that little battery operated thing and it's blowing air on that fire. It gets those embers going.
Yeah.
Just things like that.
Cool.
Can I get the link for that?
Sure. I'll send it to you. But it's just the constant. And then we've almost evolved from the ultralight backpack hunter to now the bushcraft stuff, making little bunks, and it's just, and every year it gets more and more comfortable. So this year I'm anxious to bring.
There's a forest ranger.
Yeah, there's a forest ranger. So
yes.
dead and down wood.
Well, we're only there for 3 days and then we're out of there. But I'm anxious to show Joe Esposito this year some of the gear that we have evolved and found through the years. But to your point, though, Brian, honestly, 28-pound pack is you're spot on for a week hunt.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, I have the Seek Outside 6-person. I forget, or what do I have,
Red
Austin? I got the Red Cliff.
Okay.
And then I got the titanium stove,
Yes.
and then I'm thinking I got to bring a water filter. Although I could probably save weight by just like putting my tent next to a mountain stream.
We just boiled the water.
You just boil water.
Yeah,
just boiled it.
we use a pure
Yeah.
hiker and
Just put it-
same thing.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
one of the things we got this year, I just spent like $65 on a glass cover for the stove. Seek Outside now has a glass cover.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
I thought, how cool would that be?
I'd love that. Just the
to
ambient
see
light
that
from the
light
that
flickering.
That sounds.
As you're telling your hunting
I
story.
just got all warm and
Me
cozy with
too.
you saying that.
Me
I'm like,
too.
oh, that
I'm going
sounds
on
so
Seek
cozy.
Outside's
So-
website when this is done.
Per what Dave mentioned, every now and then we come across crack that we call it. We get excited.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
outdoor
real.
hunting crack.
Gear crack.
But
Gear crack.
So the technology has continued to allow us to get lighter and lighter and more comfortable. But
So
it's
how-
great to have a partner that does the same with you.
So how often do you guys get out and do that in a typical year?
As far as backpack hunting,
yeah.
from the start of the season to the end.
Like every week,
We try every
kind of thing?
weekend.
Oh, no kidding.
A
That's
couple
awesome.
weeks during the season. But what's nice is picking different areas. We always have that, especially the Adirondack hunters, that sense of wanderlust.
Yeah.
Well, I know,
Yeah.
obviously, big woods
Yeah.
hunters. And, boy, we can be in an outfit and we could be in a certain area 5-6 miles back in. But, if we go a couple weekends
Yeah.
without seeing what we're looking for,
Yeah.
we're constantly. And now we have the ability with these maps on the phones. We're looking constantly. We're sitting in our bunks at the end of the night.
All
Boy,
the time.
and I'm going over with him, telling him, hey, what about this area? What about that area?
So I'm wondering about what you saw at one particular spot. Is that the story we're going to
Oh
tell?
yeah. So when I met Brian, it was at
really like this.
Danito's party this past year. So that's the one thing with these get-togethers. You meet new people.
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I know Dave wanted me to meet you. So
Yeah.
we got talking, and you go off and you break off to the side and you tell some stories, and you mention vaguely, what you've been doing, where you're looking, and I remember, as big as vast as the Adirondacks are, I remember he was asking me, so. I said, yeah, I'm interested in maybe looking at this new area, because he mentioned he was more in the eastern side of the Adirondacks. I mentioned the highway, and I mentioned ballpark, and I could just see he perked up, kind of like, yeah, whereabouts are you over there? And I said, well, I haven't hunted yet. I'm maybe looking next year as one of those new places. And I mentioned the name of the trail. And I remember his head whipped around even harder. And he goes, are you kidding me? He goes, I was there all last season. I'm like, what are the chances of that?
You're right.
So this is our anonymous forest ranger.
What are the chances of that? But now, in hindsight, I can tell you this. I have no interest because the one thing I've always been plagued with is we try to find areas with no boot tracks.
Yes.
It's just something the mystique about
Oh,
it.
well, yeah.
So
No
I have
doubt.
a funny
It's
twist.
like no disrespect to all the other guys, but it's just we like.
Well, I have an even crazier twist on that. Where recently, me and the anonymous forest ranger here, we got talk. We met years ago, but we got talking,
Yeah,
and
that's weird.
I mentioned where I hunt, and I said, "Oh, no, I don't really." Because I'd reached out about putting a tent there, basically. And you're like, "Yeah, go for it." And I was like, "Yeah, I never really see anybody else back there." And he mentioned the spot, and he's like, "Yeah, that's one of my spots." So now there's three of us, just like, how weird is that?
Why do you have a pin mark
Yeah,
on
and
my
then I'm
cam?
showing
Well,
showing him the cam, and he's like, I show him a screenshot of Onyx
Yeah.
where I had gone in, where my
Yeah.
cam was, because I'm pretty open, I don't care, and
me too.
he's the forest ranger, he'll figure it out.
Me too.
And he's like, you have a pin on my camp.
Well, listen, when your best hunting
Exactly.
buddy, as Dave is to me, is a diehard brook trout fisherman, you learn
Yeah.
secrecy. These brook trout fishermen are
Oh,
Yeah.
obsessed
I know
with
it.
secrecy.
Yeah,
I
it's
know
right
it.
So-
I know it.
It's kind of one of those things you carry it over during hunting season. It's like, where'd you get them? A Buck Mountain. A Buck Mountain. There's
Yeah.
5,000 Buck
Yeah,
Mountains.
there's
And then they'll
14
take it
of
to the
them.
next level. Where'd you get them? In the shoulder.
yeah.
Well, our running joke is we hunt Upper Tupper. That's become
exactly.
That's
Yeah,
become
that's
our,
always a popular place
yeah,
too. But
exactly.
but no, it's funny how we all seem to pore over maps, and like-minded individuals will gravitate to geographically a similar
It's a-
area.
it's a cool
And I
spot.
think we're all seeking the
Stay
same
out,
thing.
though.
We all have
No,
that
okay.
wanderlust.
Yeah,
We're all
yeah.
looking what's around that next ridge.
No.
But that's the one thing I've been fortunate to hunt Maine. I hunted 1 week there. I was successful, and New Hampshire as well. But I wanted to see other places and see if it had that same unique spirit that the Adirondacks has. And for me, I've yet to find anything that can top it.
That's really funny that you say that. So, me and Austin we have to drive to Maine a lot, right, because of Big Woods Bucks, and we have the picnics and the events and shows and all this kind of stuff. So we're around that, and we've hunted Maine, and Maine's a different beast, and it's more business-like for me because there's a lot of human interaction with the woods, with logging and roads and people and trucks, and a sense of
It's been touched.
it's been touched, and wouldn't you say there's like a friendly competition?
Yeah.
Yeah, because of people.
Friendly is generous.
Like, I
I
love
mean, it's
Maine for different reasons, right? Like,
Yeah,
I look at the
absolutely.
mountains differently, but it's not the Adirondack.
look
Nothing is.
The whole vibe is different, and I love Rick. He is my mentor, but he's a madman. I mean, it's like
Absolutely.
it's the antithesis of the chill like woods experience that
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Go,
he just
go,
mentioned,
go.
correct me if I'm wrong, he just
Yeah.
started hunting the Adirondacks, did he not?
He did.
And
He did.
And he took a liking to it as well.
And he did. Yeah.
He will.
Yeah.
He will. Yep.
You want
But
to know
I think Maine is a lot like that, though. And, we had a good friend who hunted Maine for the first time last season. And I don't want to put words in his mouth or presume to know what he was thinking, but I suspect it's just such a different experience because there's trucks going by. There's people getting out, checking tracks. There's just logging trucks speeding down the road. Everybody's worried about getting cut off. And it's just like, it's hectic. It's like anxiety-inducing
Yeah.
in a way that the Adirondacks are the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And you just get back
You're
in the
absolutely
woods and
right.
you're
You
just
want to
like,
know a good analogy? Mainers hunt like New Yorkers live their lives.
That's true.
And
That's
we
a great-
hunt
That's
Mainers with their
That's a
lives.
really
That-
good
You're
point.
getting deep now.
that was a great
This is such
analogy.
a great philosophical session,
It is.
Austin. I think you just took the
Yeah.
The
cake
light
there.
bulb went off about 30
Yeah.
seconds ago.
But no, you
That's brilliant.
mentioned that competitiveness. You know, when you are up there, when you're driving those roads and you're trying to get in there and beat somebody out to it, that's not enjoyable.
No,
you
it's-
don't wait all year to have that anxiety and that.
The one thing I can say about Maine, though, is once you get used to it, like you figure out there are vast places that nobody goes to. There is enough room. You just have to kind of go Adirondack on it. You stop at a place where nobody else is willing to stop, where there are no tracks, but you've looked at a map, you've looked at Onyx, and then you go, okay, I got to do the 3-mile hike in and out. It's just the price I have to pay here to get away from everything.
Yeah.
And I got to pick a chunk of woods that hasn't been cut in 20 years. You know, so it's just you got to be more selective, and you got to go Adirondack on it. That's what.
No, that's a great.
And that's what Hal
That's
does.
a great way to think about it, going Adirondack. And I can remember, going back years ago, the impression that the Benoits had on all of us. But I remember the hardest thing, like Larry Benoit said, wasn't killing your buck, was finding it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
for
I
sure.
can remember in
For
the
sure.
Adirondacks, finding it took a whole different level because you're finding it with your left foot and your right foot
Yeah.
all day, searching. And that is, like I said, it's a very difficult thing. But to your point, also, I've gravitated from, putting in the physical miles to find what we're looking for. That to me, over time, is just that was how we viewed, like I said, the camps that we were part of. That's the style. It was almost like a thing that you put your chest out. How many miles did you do today?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, some guys 10 miles. It's like, holy cow, 10 miles.
Yeah.
And then I just remember going, at the end of the seasons, when I was first time, like, this isn't enjoyable. I can remember guys almost crying because the hunt season was over. It's like, thank God it's over. I'm exhausted. I'm mentally exhausted. I'm physically
Absolutely.
exhausted. And I remember going, this isn't how I should feel at the end of the hunt season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where, like
So
I said,
true.
Dave literally put a collar on me is to slow down and started enjoying
Yeah.
the slower pace. And ironically, I think we're more successful with the slower pace than we
Absolutely.
were with the faster
Me and
pace.
Mark talk about this all the time
Absolutely.
with Rick being my mentor and like I felt like I had to be Rick and I have to go super hard, nonstop, run down the track. And Mark's brought me around to embracing myself, which is just frankly I enjoy myself more when I'm going slower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm taking it in.
No, there was a story I shared with Dave earlier. It was a friend of ours, that young guy, unbelievably accomplished, hunter.
Mhm.
And I remember catching up with him later that night back at one of the camps, and we happened to be in the same area, and he happened to be in ahead of me.
Mhm.
But I never ever will forget seeing running hunter tracks
Yeah.
going across this ridge.
Yeah.
And I remember going, what in the world is this guy running for? He must be chasing. There's no buck track. And I said, what is he doing? Well, come to find out, he was doing a giant loop just to see if he could cut a track of a buck that was going up and off that ridge. And he was trying to do it as
Yeah.
fast as he could. And I thought to myself, that can't be
Right.
enjoyable.
Right. Right.
I
know,
Well, you know what's
But
funny
there's
though is
people.
Rick.
Yes.
He loves it,
They
and he
do.
would
It's a-
rather.
Because it's
no, it's just
competition.
he loves.
Yeah.
I don't even think
That's
it's,
what it is,
It's,
Austin.
and it's the competition against the buck though.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's
yes.
and he
He's gotta
he
win.
cannot bear to see a big buck live.
It's true.
I mean, he just can't. He can't, and that's just he loves that. If you
Eradicate
watch,
big bucks.
if you watch the what was his? Slewfoot at the end.
Yeah.
Mark, you were talking about the experience of joy at the end of a hunt or at the end of a trip to the Adirondacks. When he takes off his hat at the end of that video and just he gone 12 miles, you could see the joy in his face.
Yeah.
He's just like he's just beaming. He's glowing.
Yeah.
He's just
He's
that's what he
intense.
lives for, is to go 12 miles back-to-back days and kill that big buck. And that's what where his joy derives.
And if he
Yeah.
didn't get it, he would have gone 12 more than that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's everybody needs to find what floats their boat, so to speak, and what motivates you.
Yeah.
If you're not thinking about it year round, it's like I know everybody we're obsessed with
Yes.
just
Yeah.
it just we're fortunate that we can drift off mentally. And every day it might be a stressful day, and I'll just stop and think. Like right now, I know the countdown's like 72
Yes.
days till
Yes.
October 1st, and it's so funny how we all just are able to drift off. But if you don't have a passion in life, I always feel there's people that I have in my inner circle that they're always kind of envious of what we do, and
I
it's
know.
always
Yeah.
like I feel sorry
Yes.
that you don't have anything that you're thinking about all the time,
Yeah.
and other
Yeah.
than work, and But no, that's what the big woods hunting has been able to do. I know for me and my group is give us a place to go, and like technology that we were talking about earlier, we seem to be more and more connected. You know, we have the ability with inReach and things of that nature, but it's good just to shut that stuff off. And the inReaches, we love to communicate for safety reasons, but to be able to be disconnected,
detach.
It's everything. It's everything.
you know.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
Forest Ranger, plug your ears. Do you guys leave your tents up at all?
During the week that we're in there, yes. But at the end of the weekend, because of the materials, I like to try to take my stuff home and dry it out.
Yep.
You know, if it's cold, you know, Dave's telling me you probably don't really need to do this, but if it's just, when you have OCD and you want everything perfect, you know,
Yeah.
don't ultralight backpack hunt in the Adirondacks.
Right.
Because I want to bring everything back, lay everything out, and a lot of times I'll lay it out. What did I not use and what did I use this week?
Yeah,
and
there
I
you
start evolving
Yeah,
where I
yeah.
never even touched that. Well, why carry it?
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
like being a floorless
Yeah.
shelter.
That's right.
I got my little piece of Tyvek or
Yeah.
whatever, you know.
No,
DCF, it doesn't matter, but it always gets dirty.
yeah.
And I'm like sweeping it off.
I
all the
do.
time.
Me
like
too,
one
me
little
too.
like piece of a leaf will get on there, and I'm like, go away.
We have in our entranceway of the teepee, because it gets a little muddy. Dave brought up, what was that material, Dave, that you brought? I can't remember.
Roofing felt.
Burlap. We
Oh,
brought a little
burlap.
burlap little material, so he calls it redneck carpet.
It is.
So we put it right at the
Burlap
entrance,
is,
so it just
yeah.
keeps. But
That's a good idea.
no, it's the outfits, we do try to break them down. There might be the one thing is we do obviously is prior to the season is try to make sure the most important thing we have learned is dry firewood.
Yeah, there it is.
If you don't have dry firewood, you're in for a rough
hear that,
rough
Brian?
week.
So are you? Yeah. No, I hear it. I hear that. I definitely hear that. So are you looking for, and of course, dead and down
Yep.
wood?
Yeah, no, we tried
And,
it because it's gotten a head start at being dry.
Right.
That's right.
And are
because-
you? Yeah. Are you looking for hardwood or softwood?
Yeah, hardwood.
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 Yeah.
And we might cut up some softwood just, for starting the fires. But that took time to learn too.
Yes.
Is how to have good quality wood, how to cover it. There was a time and a place I would have it completely covered. No air was able to get through. So by the time I got to it, everything was saturated from the ground,
Yeah.
moisture.
Yep.
And those are one of the things that you learn. And
And about how much are you cutting? Like what are we talking here?
we
4 foot
probably-
high pile.
yeah, I wouldn't say quite. I'd say like maybe 3 foot high, and I'd
3
say,
foot
I don't
high.
know, maybe
Yeah.
5 foot long.
Yeah.
That's
And are we talking like how big of a diameter?
Well, a lot of the stuff we use is limwood because remember
Yeah.
we got these small stoves.
Yeah.
So I think we have
Right.
nothing more than 14 inches,
Right.
and they're not airtight stoves. So that's
Right.
another thing too. It's not like I could put something big in there. I need to get that going, and
Keep it going.
we find that
Yep.
through the years too is it serves its purpose. We could get a much
Yeah.
bigger airtight stove and have heat, but we're usually conked out by 7 p.m. and we're in these high-end sleeping bags. We're comfortable, but we're not constantly popping out and reassessing the stove situation.
So-
We'll have everything set up for that morning where I could literally reach my arm out, put a little piece of trioxane
Nice.
tab in there, touch that.
Nice.
And now we're taking it to the next step. We'll put the water in a pot on the stove the night
Yep.
before.
Yep.
So when I stick my arm out, get that baby going, now you're
Nice.
The coffee's
That's
done.
awesome.
Exactly.
So you're not waking up and stoking it and
No,
refeeding it during
no,
the
when
night.
we're out, we're
you
out.
just hunker down. You're
Yeah,
good.
well,
Yeah.
when I say hunker
Yeah.
down, we're pretty darn comfortable.
So do you
Brian's
find?
already talked about this on a previous podcast. So after this, you need to hear his story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love
the
to-
hot tent story. Yeah. freaking hot tents. I love my Seek Outside, and I
It is.
actually
It's
did it
great
properly
gear.
this year. But I'm taking notes from
Yeah.
everything
Well,
you're
there's
saying.
like
for
I
sure.
said, I love sharing what
Yeah.
we have learned.
It's awesome.
Think about it, 20 years of dialing it in.
You guys are
why
like the
why
OG
have to
with
have
this stuff.
somebody go
Yeah.
through the hard way? Everything from the liners to
So
it's just amazing.
You can always
Yeah,
call
so-
Dave for a question.
Yep.
He'll tell you for an hour.
yeah, and
Don't
we
ask him
talk
where the
for
big
sure.
brookies are. That's the one thing you don't
Yeah,
ask.
yeah, for sure. Believe me, I've tried. So when you come back to camp and you're like one of those days where you've got ice around all your
Yeah.
woolies and stuff.
Yep.
How long does it take to dry that out and
Oh,
Seek
not long at all.
Outside?
Actually, in those teepees, the tops of those teepees, we've now taken little S hooks and we put them at the top of the teepee pole, and we literally hang our boots and we'll hang. And I know my Kifaro teepee, I have a dry line that goes around the top of it. And honestly, when we get those things cranking, because they do burn hot, I will say, when
Yeah.
we first start
Yes.
those things, they get going, and you're probably 110 degrees at the top of that 8-foot teepee.
Yeah.
And down by
Yeah.
where we're sitting, it's probably 70.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
But it dries out quick.
Yeah.
Where we have to be cognizant, because that's the one thing with these synthetic materials.
Mhm.
You get like a down jacket that you're hanging up because you might be too warm. That touches that stovepipe, poof.
Yeah.
Looks
yeah.
like somebody shot a partridge in the middle of our
Yeah.
teepee. You
Yeah,
know.
for sure.
But over time, we have learned. Like I said, we'll try to get everything dried out. It usually take a couple hours. But again, it's dual purpose. While we're doing the cooking, while we're maybe boiling
Mm-hmm.
water for our freeze-dry meals, we're also drying out our gear at the same time.
Nice. Yep.
And
You
no,
gotta
it's
be careful with the wool because it drinks.
It'll
yeah, it does. And I'm
Yeah.
learning now, and we were just talking about this year. I'm a big fan of Exo Backpack, where they have a lot of their podcasts, and they're talking about some of the materials and things they use out west, which is much drier climate, but synthetic material boots versus the leather boots that we use here. That leather shrinks. So if you put that up in that dry rack in the top of
Yeah.
that teepee, but no, we have dialed in just little things. I mean, past few years, little Nalgene bottles that we'll take, boil water, put it in that Nalgene bottle, stuff it in that sleeping bag before you go. Just little
Nice,
things like
little
that
tricks like
makes
that.
it
I love
more
it.
comfortable.
Yeah, I love it.
You know, but yeah, it's a great way to hunt the Adirondacks. It gives you 24 hours of being in the Adirondacks. You're not walking out. You're not driving back. And it just allows the hunt to continue.
Frankly, you know, and one of the anxiety-inducing things, especially in the town that we hunt, is just seeing all the trucks. So I'd
Well,
like to just be back in the tent. And
I
I'd be
agree.
like, that's guy at my spot. Like,
Well,
it's
think
Den-
about
it's
it.
Denny.
Those
Denny's going on my
guys in
spot.
those trucks, though, majority of them have to walk back out. So if you could get
Yeah.
on that fringe where they're just touching maybe your area,
Yeah.
Yeah, go a half mile more and you're
yeah,
good.
exactly.
I got a spot. You know.
But
I think I'm good. The only person I'll run into is you. Stay out.
that's the one thing we've always said, and it's the old mantra: you can never hunt all of the Adirondacks. It's like, I'm going to die trying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So every year, I'd like
Yeah.
to pick new country, and like this year, I know I have an interest in the high peaks. I've never done it, but there's
Don't
a part
do
of
it.
me physically
Don't
that
do it.
I told Dave. I said I don't know how many more years I might be able to do this, but I just want to do it. It's always
Yeah.
my eyes gravitate to that country sometimes.
Mine
On
did.
the maps.
They're
Mine
gonna
has to.
gravitate to the truck. It's steep,
Yeah, I know, but
and you got to get up high early, hunt down.
yeah, no, I've learned the transition lines, how valuable those could be. Where the hardwoods meets the green timber. But you're right, I may get skunked, but in my mind, it'll literally put me at ease. Going, okay, you did it, tried it. Back to what we're maybe more familiar
Back to the
with.
foothills.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we have to end this because we have a seminar.
Yeah, you guys got to get going. Denny, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
This
It was awesome.
yeah.
We love sharing our stories
Yeah.
and we appreciate it. Thank you.
It was awesome.
Thank you.
It's awesome,
Thank you,
Denny.
Ryan.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Stay out of my spot.
Exactly.
All right, take care, everybody.
See ya.